Hey everyone, it's your boy Matt. This is Taco Admin for 17 March 2026. So we're going to talk about ham sandwiches today. So a ham sandwich, it has a very specific definition, but we're going to use a more general definition today. The specific definition of a ham sandwich is when there's a killing by a police officer and they need to fabricate some evidence to make it justifiable. So what they do is that they put a weapon such as a firearm or a knife or something at the crime scene, and then they go, he pulled a gun on me. He pulled a knife on me. I had no choice but to use my firearm on him and to kill him. Now, that's a pretty egregious thing to do. It's interfering with evidence. In that kind of situation, it's about protecting the reputation of the police officer. I have had multiple situations where there has been an interference by police in evidence. The most recent example of this was on my previous phone, which had all kinds of funky stuff going on with it, where I was shooting a video where I had intentionally gone out and got myself a bottle of drink, and I was describing alcohol. And that video was intended as something to provide mentorship to young people. What happened through that video is I was describing my plans to have a prolonged adolescence. By this I mean I wanted to get the fuck out of the country, I wanted to live overseas, I wanted to break out of the cycle of expectations in our society. And I still do. Anyone who has experienced the extent of the abuse I have had in a culture or a society is going to want to flee that society. Now, that explanation has been taken in completely out of context because I was stopped from being able to finish that shoot and finish my statement. And that means the information which was intended to prime the rest of the video didn't get used for its purpose. And I wasn't able to get the message out, and instead a different message was fabricated. Context is everything. And you need to remember, I'm a social scientist, and you're probably just Joe Bloggs. And the police definitely are not skilled enough to be able to interpret my statements. They definitely do not have the skill to understand what I say, and they do not have the ability to act ethically in any of to respond ethically to any of my statements. Right? So first of all, what is adolescence? Adolescence is a developmental period. It's primarily a social idea, although there is a neurological component to it. There are some people who have told me that the brain does not fully form until around 25. I'm not entirely sure about the neurological development towards adolescence, but it is a time period of adolescence. It is a time period that we have, a developmental period that entered our culture around the 1960s, and the idea is that it's a transition between the responsibilities of childhood and adulthood. There's this idea that you find yourself. It's meant to be the funnest period of our life. And as a person who had the most important period of my life taken from me due to trauma in the Navy, I was bastardized as a result of being afraid of people, like all people. It has taken a lot of courage to become as skilled as I am at a whole lot of things. And part of the reason why I'm so skilled as a provisional psychologist, as I'm currently registered, is because of that anxiety around people. Now, what's happened, what I want to do, or wanted to do and still want to do, is I want to break free of these social expectations and these concepts of, like, we need you to settle down in our society, we need you to have a home, kids, we need you to engage in these socially enforced behaviors. And that's what I was trying to express. Adulthood is socially enforced, is when we conform to the requirements of our society. Okay? There's a significant difference between That and maturity. I'm an exceedingly mature person. I'm an exceedingly world-wearied person. I do have issues with substances, and what I was trying to express in that video was that there is a there is because I was having a discussion both about maturity and adulthood, and they are two different concepts. Um, is that to me they are anyway. I was trying to express that substances are a lot of fun, but it's actually quite childish how people engage with them a lot of the time, and how we put it, the age, you must be over 18 years of age to use it. It's not because it's more adulty to drink, it's because it's when you're drinking, like it's a very childish thing to do, okay? And that's what I was describing. I am exceedingly mature. Um, Also, the thing with acid, I haven't had acid in like 6 or 8 years. It's not the cause of any of my current mental health problems. It was something which was very useful at a point in my life, and it made me realize how traumatized I was and how toxically masculine I was in a lot of ways. It helped me come to terms with some of the terrible things which happened to me, and I highly recommend engaging in the use of psychedelic drugs. They've got a place. They're not something that you want to build your personality around, and they're not something that you want to use too frequently. But they're a very useful thing. They're something which is not habit forming, unlike weed or booze. Booze is my Achilles heel. And that's what I wanted to express. By stopping me from finishing that video and cutting it where it was, that was an interference in evidence. That this needs to stop. The interference in evidence, the interference of my evidence, which is any video I make, because they're often taken out of context, is, it's something which should be considered something which is very taboo, if not something which is criminal. If it's ever given to a magistrate or published in some way like that, it should be considered criminal. And I think the police or whoever is involved in my censorship should face some form of consequence. Heavens knows they put a lot of consequences to me for shit which isn't my fault. The situation I'm in is the result of bastardization by the Australian Signals Directorate. No one could progress in life while being abused by these people the way I have, and that happened before Taco. There was an incident at my first workplace at IPAR where I had somewhat of a nervous breakdown at work. And what happened is that they had been adjusting files and they'd been doing all kinds of weird stuff. They had already engaged in this bastardization when I was there, and they're somewhat responsible for me losing my first job. And they've done a lot of terrible things. Being abused by people, very juvenile people, at organisations such as the Signals Directorate is not something you would wish on your worst enemy, apart from my worst enemies, who are the people who work there, who deserve to suffer every little bit as much as I have. Have a good day, everyone.